How you feel?
Feel good.
What does you, a person who's rich, who doesn't know what struggle is like, and who also talks about the fact that you use your own son's blood, have to add to us as humanity? It's really false of you to claim that people are focusing their life on dying, when really all of us are focusing on surviving. That's why we're here. Every one of us is here today because we're surviving. We don't go to McDonald's and think, oh, this is killing me. We go to McDonald's because we don't have enough time in the day to make dinner, because we can't afford to go to the grocery store and buy a $20 steak, because we can't shop at Erewhon and get $40 of strawberries, you know? So I think a lot of us are here wondering, what does you, a person who's rich, who doesn't know what struggle is like, and who also talks about the fact that you use your own son's blood, have to add to us as humanity?
Yeah. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey.
Yeah, I grew up with 4 other siblings, single mom. My mother made my clothes because we didn't have enough money for her to buy clothes for me. I went to school and I got made fun of because my clothes didn't fit and they were awkward. I didn't have money my entire life. I became an entrepreneur. I struggled for 14 years with no money whatsoever. So I understand what it feels like to have no money. I know what it feels like to be poor. So I've been through that. I also was chronically depressed for 10 years. I wanted to commit suicide desperately. I really would have committed suicide had it not been for my 3 kids. I felt like I had a responsibility to them. So I understand struggle, I understand pain. I was 50 pounds overweight. I was in a terrible shape. And so I understand what it's like to be that way. My argument is not to criticize you or anyone else. What I'm arguing is that companies have built their products to make you addicted and to make you ill. That's the core thing I'm trying to say, is that the most powerful economic engine in all of history, the American economic engine, has pointed itself at creating addictive foods and phones and social media and junk food.
Do you not think that you're addicted to trying to stay alive?
What we talking about, real shit, or we talking about rhyme? You talking about millions or you talking about mine? What we talking about?
Yo, bust it!
Look at you!
On the dance floor,
Look at you! Look at you!
I ain't got no pens on the dance floor.
How you feel?
Feel good.
Chapter 2. There is a science of getting rich. There is a science of getting rich, and it is an exact science, like algebra or arithmetic. There are certain laws which govern the process of acquiring riches. Once these laws are learned and obeyed by any man, he will get rich with mathematical certainty. The ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way. Those who do things in this certain way, whether on purpose or accidentally, get rich, while those who do not do things in this certain way, no matter how hard they work or how able they are, remain poor. It is a natural law that like causes always produce like effects, and therefore any man or woman who learns to do things in this certain way will infallibly get rich. That the above statement is true is shown by the following facts. Getting rich is not a matter of environment, for if it were, all the people in certain neighborhoods would become wealthy. The people of one city would all be rich, while those of other towns would all be poor. or the inhabitants of one state would roll in wealth and those of an adjoining state would be in poverty. But everywhere we see rich and poor living side by side in the same environment and often engaged in the same vocations. When two men are in the same locality and in the same business, and one gets rich while the other remains poor, it shows that getting rich is not primarily a matter of environment. Some environments may be more favorable than others, but when two men in the same business are in the same neighborhood, and one gets rich while the other fails, it indicates that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. And further, the ability to do things in this certain way is not due solely to the possession of talent, for many people who have great talent remain poor, while others who have very little talent get rich. Studying the people who have gotten rich, we find that they are an average lot in all respects, having no greater talents and abilities than other men. It is evident that they do not get rich because they possess talents and abilities that other men have not, but because they happen to do things in a certain way. Getting rich is not the result of saving or thrift. Many very penurious people are poor, while free spenders often get rich. Nor is getting rich due to doing things which others fail to do. For two men in the same business often do almost exactly the same things, and one gets rich while the other remains poor or becomes bankrupt. From all these things, we must come to the conclusion that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. If getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way, then any man or woman who can do things in that way can become rich, and the whole matter is brought within the domain of exact science. The question arises here whether this certain way may not be so difficult that only a few may follow it. This cannot be true, as we have seen, so far as natural ability is concerned. Talented people get rich, and blockheads get rich. Intellectually brilliant people get rich, and very stupid people get rich. Physically strong people get rich, and weak and sickly people get rich. Some degree of ability to think and understand is, of course, essential. But insofar natural ability is concerned, any man or woman who has sense enough to read and understand these words can certainly get rich. Also, we have seen that it is not a matter of environment. Location counts for something. One would not go to the heart of the Sahara and expect to do successful business. Getting rich involves the necessity of dealing with men and of being where there are people to deal with. And if these people are inclined to deal in the way that you want to deal, so much the better. But that is about as far as environment goes. If anybody else in your town can get rich, so can you. And if anybody else in your state can get rich, so can you. Again, it is not a matter of choosing some particular business or profession. People get rich in every business and in every profession, while their next-door neighbors in the same vocation remain in poverty. It is true that you will do best in a business which you like and which is congenial to you. And if you have certain talents which are well developed, you will do best in a business which calls for the exercise of those talents. Also, you will do best in a business which is suited to your locality. An ice cream parlor would do better in a warm climate than in Greenland, and a salmon fishery will succeed better in the Northwest than in Florida, where there are no salmon. But aside from these general limitations, getting rich is not dependent upon your engaging in some particular business, but upon your learning to do things in a certain way. If you are now in business and anybody else in your locality is getting rich in the same business, while you are not getting rich, it is because you are not doing things in the same way that the other person is doing them. No one is prevented from getting rich by lack of capital. True, as you get capital, the increase becomes more easy and rapid, but one who has capital is already rich and does not need to consider how to become so. No matter how poor you may be, if you begin to do things in a certain way, you will begin to get rich, and you will begin to have capital. The getting of capital is a part of the process of getting rich, and it is a part of the result which invariably follows the doing of things in a certain way. You may be the poorest man on the continent and be deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influence, nor resources, but if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich, for the like causes must produce like effects. If you have no capital, you can get capital. If you're in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you're in the wrong location, you can go to the right location. And you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location to do things in the certain way which causes success.
Peace to the tribe, peace to the collective. No, I just had to get these kids that don't play with me talk while they doing their homeschool session. I tend to get on live and they get a little bit more crazy because they like dad not paying attention to us. But with all that being said, welcome to chapter 2 of the Science of Getting Rich, Metaphysical Breakdown. This book is by Wallace D. Wattles. It was written in 1919, 1920, something like that. So, of course, we'll give it a modern interpretation, a modern spin. The particular topics that we're going to be discussing in this video is basically you don't get rich on accident. Even if you do get rich on accident, it wasn't on accident, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, it will in the future. But yeah, we're going to, my hope, plans, dreams, wishes is to go through every chapter as a personal quest, as a personal challenge, but also with that, assist those who are not rich into getting rich by utilizing metaphysical and or mental properties to then create the physical effects. Because when we understand causation, we understand that like attracts like. So, in reference to a mental and metaphysical program, it's very normal and very natural to look at your bank account and say, damn, I'm broke. Damn, I'm poor. Damn, I wish I never did that before. Damn, I wish I got a better job. Man, I need more money. It's very normal and natural to do that. But at the same time, that is a programming of your particular future, because in the beginning, the word was God. So, with all that being said, uh, chapter 2 talks about there is a science to getting rich, meaning that there is a state or a fact of knowing what is known, knowledge of something acquired by study. There is information available in the subject of getting rich. So whether or not you want to investigate that, you should, if you say, I want to be rich, then if you do want to be rich, but you look in your bank account and it don't show that you're rich, then at a certain point, you do not know the science. At a certain point, you do not know the information. So what is your responsibility? Is it your responsibility to keep wanting to be rich, keep desiring to be rich? Or is it your responsibility to state a fact of knowing what is known? Is it your responsibility to gain knowledge of getting rich acquired by study? Is it your responsibility to gain the information? Or do you just simply want? So what this chapter is doing, in my opinion, is differentiating the fact of normal things that people do when they are poor that keeps them poor, as opposed to coming to a conclusion. When I mean a conclusion, coming to an ending. This part of my life, I was poor as shit, but this next part of my life, I'm rich as shit because I'm willing to adopt and learn the information, whatever information it is in reference to what you want to be rich doing. This isn't the science of starting a business. This isn't the start. This isn't the science of getting a high paying job, because either one of those can occur and you can implement the science of getting rich in your job right now. You can implement the science of getting rich in your business right now, or you can work at a high paying job, right? Getting paid $100,000 a year and still live check to check because you are paying $5,000 a month for an apartment. You're paying $2,000 a month for the latest Benz and insurance. So um, you know, $100,000, that's not even $10,000 a month, right? $100,000, that's 7,500 a month, give or take, before taxes. So a person that's making $100,000 a year might only have $5,000 to $6,000 a month to spend. Do you know how easy it is to spend $5,000 to $6,000 in a month in reference to the bills that adults in America have to pay? One's in the chat if what I'm saying actually makes sense to a person. In reference to, you can make $100,000 a year and budget very hard and become rich. You can run and operate your business and leverage credit or leverage the market or leverage in an idea and get really rich. You can have a business, and this is something from personal experience. You can have a business, and that business operates at the same level as living check to check. Because at a certain point, this is my mentality. So if my mentality is check to check, making sure that I pay the bills, even in the space of having a business, that's how I exist. So in order to shift my understanding in reality, I have to reprogram my subconscious mind, because at one level, the programming was, I want to start a business. The programming wasn't never, I want to start a business and become rich. And that is my conclusion, right? That is that is that is the end of that cycle. Because whether it's working at Ford Motor Company or operating my own business, it don't matter to me, because the overall goal is to become rich and to understand at least the text and whatever else that I'm doing and studying at the most deepest level, because we have the ability to, like, it's there. The book is available, the PDF is available, the the audio book is available for free. And like, I just woke up this morning. Like, damn, I'm just about to just like read books and study them like chapter for chapter, like, because I know that the information is valuable, but I'm so quick to skim over some shit. I'm so quick to been there, done that on some shit that I fully haven't digested all of the information to, whereas the science of it is not like a part of me. I've heard this audiobook thousands of times. I've read it extensively, and it has helped me so much, right? I haven't worked a job, like a 9 to 5 job for real, like a real 9 to 5 where you got to really do the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, my last 9 to 5, I was in the basement smoking, like not even like on some sneaky shit. Like, I'm about to go take a smoke break. Let me get a pre-roll. Like, that wasn't real. But a real 9 to 5, I haven't really done that since like 2018, right? So what I'm saying is, this book has helped me a lot, but I feel like it's in my soul. In my soul, I feel like there is more to this book that I don't get, and what I'm doing is just sharing with y'all what I'm trying to find in this book. Cause I like I'm telling y'all, I haven't worked at all, like, for real. You know what I'm saying? And whatever the thing is that I'm doing, like delivering newspapers, I'm getting to it. Whatever I'm doing, I'm getting to it on a daily basis. because I implement what I've learned from this book. This is the book that I've read the most in my entire life, right? But yet and still, I'm like, I want to be biblical with this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like the Bible got scholars, schools, evangelists, churches, everything built around this one book. I feel like this is one of many books that I want to do this with. I want to get in like at least 100 books that I feel about, like, because I'm a reader. But at the same time, out of 100, this is number one, because when I tell you the information in this book, The Science of Getting Rich, right, is valid. It's valid. It's been out since 1919. Read the reviews. Um, Look up all the other videos talking about this book on YouTube, all the other podcast think pieces about this book. Meaning to say, just don't take my word for it. So, with all of that being said, we're going to do some quotes, some current events, some metaphysics. It's not going to be that long. I don't have that many slides for this particular chapter, but I just want to get to the overall point. So, if you heard, a ghost just walked in the room. He was like, "Yo, about to get into the good part." Just took his seat. Anyways, should be real like that. Anyways, if you heard the audiobook I played in the start of each of these videos, I'm going to play the chapter that we're going to be talking about, because the chapter, like, it'll read for like 5 minutes at the most, and then basically talk about the high points. And when I say the high points, it's very hard for me, because when I'm hearing the text is one thing, but reading the text is like, damn, every single sentence I be wanting to highlight, and just like, I'm not about to reread it to you niggas, right? But at the same time, it is a lot of jewels and gems. So if you into this, right, and you want to take an hour of 2 hours of your day to study this, read along to the audiobook, because in that way the whole concept is being encapsulated within your mind, because reading the words is easier to understand. But the basic premise, in my opinion, in reading chapter 2 is that people assume that money is just going to fly out the sky. Therefore, they don't really think about it in a pragmatic, realistic, actual, factual way. The baseline for money for people is a survival mechanism. It is not utilized as an instrument of growth, an instrument of freedom, more than what I'm saying is like, people are not talking about money openly and honestly. One's in the chat, if you didn't talk about money and finances thoroughly with your family. And I'm not just talking about your immediate family. I'm talking about aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandmas. Like, did y'all have open ones? If y'all did not have open and honest conversations surrounding money, or you and your friends and the people that you are in deep relationships with, you and your friends that you have deep relationships with, y'all don't be really talking about money like that. Like, like more of a way of like saying, one day we gonna have it. One day we gonna be rich, right? But, right, and Wallace D. Waddles in chapter 2, he is talking about ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way, right? So in reading this book over and over again, I started to key in these words, because the thing that I want you to stay tuned to in subsequent videos is, what is that certain way, right? Because this certain way that he didn't get to in chapter 2 but alludes to in chapter 2 is differentiating the reasons why, at a mental level, albeit, of why people are not rich. Because those who do things in this certain way, whether on purpose or accidentally, get rich, while those who do not do things in this certain way, no matter how hard they work and how able they are, remain poor. And that really stuck with me because I consider myself a hard worker. I consider myself someone who works very hard, very diligently, to the point. But over the past couple of months, my hard work have been scaring me because it's like, who am I? When I go to try to tell somebody like about myself, I have a hard time in expressing it because in my mind I have all of these thousands of instances where I over delivered and worked very hard because I guess it's like a deeper level of wanting to people please, whether that's in professional or personal settings. And this condition where over a certain time I start to get it, like people was like, damn, this nigga, he doing all this work and he ain't even going to be here forever, you know? And the older I get, right, the more that scares me and the less, not to say I don't want to work hard, but I want to secure this feeling that I'm having in reference to who I am and not really knowing who I am because I'm so wrapped up in hard work. So that's another reason why I'm dealing with this book in this particular fashion at this particular time, because I want to definitely nip this aspect in the butt. And what do I expect to get out of it? Really, I only expect to understand exactly what this book is saying when I'm done with it, and then also share in that understanding. Because at a certain point, I'm not in fairy tale la la land about anything, and I'm realizing where I could have showed up and I should have shown up, but I didn't show up. So obviously, learning from my past mistakes, I'm just trying to show up better in all areas of my life because, I understand that there's no guarantees. I understand that things aren't going to work out the way you think they're going to work out all of the time. And that doesn't really bother me. What bothers me is leaving things on the table that shouldn't be left on the table, or being the person that I want to be and having the chance to walk in those steps. Because, sometimes I feel old, but then when I think about the fact that I turned 41 this year, that if you live to 80, you live half of your life. So that means, I got another whole half. So how do I want to live that half? And my honesty in this particular point, like, is figuring out a way to get rich, and that's just my truth. And so, like I said, I've read this book 1,000 times and studied this book so many times, read this book so many times, but I've yet to admit to myself and to others that I want to be rich. I might say, I want to have a business. I want to help people. I want to, meditate deeper. But at the end of the day, like, and it's no offense. Like, I would feel like it's an offense to somebody for me to say that, right? And because I don't want to offend nobody, I will suffer behind, me just unable to affirm it within myself. And then, right, I affirmed it. Now I'm ready to live in a certain way. But what is a certain way from an etymological point of view, right? A certain way is a determined and a fixed, reliable, sure, and assured. Well, what is a way, right? A way is an established road. So a certain way is a determined, fixed, reliable, assured, and assured established road. A track or path by which some place may be reached. A line or course of travel, a distance to be traveled, right? A way is a certain way. It is a path, right? We've been talking about pathology. Then the lack of having a pathology is a disease. So when we're discussing a disease of the mind, from my perspective, the way that the world is, knowing that this is an illusion, knowing that we're in a matrix, knowing that this is a video game, why would you play the video game with no credits? One's in the chat if that do not make sense. Why would we be in this world and not want to have credits to get the things that we want in the game? So when it comes to, it's a part in chapter 2 where, and I'll just bring up the exact. It is a natural law that like causes always produce like effects. And therefore, any man or woman who learns to do things in this certain way will infallibly get rich. So, in the main crux, the main meat and potatoes of this chapter is the fact that it doesn't matter where you at or what's happened. So when you are referencing the reason why you are not rich, right? That brings us into the fallacy of the single cause, also known as complex cause. So in your mind, it's all of these reasons why and why not things can't happen the way you want them to happen. Casual oversimplification. And this is one of the words that have been traveling over these past couple of months, whereas we have to rework some of this spiritual dialogue because a lot of it have been diluted into oversimplification, especially with TikTok. How can I explain spiritual knowledge and spiritual implication in an 8-second clip that goes viral and you have millions of subscribers? In the way for which you entertain and explain spirituality, do rap songs and interesting skits and things of that nature. There's nothing wrong with it because it's simplifying it, But when it is done by the millions and that becomes the representation of what spirituality is, at that point, it's an oversimplification. It is the act of reducing a complex issue, which is spiritual development, to an overly simple explanation, which can be misleading and inaccurate by omitting important details and nuances. So, when it comes to being rich and being a spiritual being, and you find yourself on the outside looking in, the ways for which you go about your spiritual life have been oversimplified to the point of, I'll just think about meditation. I'll just listen to a video while I'm at work. I'll just do this. I'll just go to the Botanica. I'll just, watch this hood video for like 10 minutes. And then that'll be my spiritual work for the week. Yeah, I seen that video. That video was good. Well, that is an oversimplification. In reference to all spiritual work, you need to do the work. So it brings to beg the question: if you want to be rich, I want to be rich. Oh, you got to be old school to know that song. Why are you not rich? That is the question. Because one of the quotes from the second chapter is, some environments may be more favorable than others, but when two men in the same business, in the same neighborhood, one get rich while the other fails, it indicates that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. Everybody around you that lives in your neighborhood is not poor. Everybody that goes to your school is not poor. Everybody that you work with is not poor. Everybody in your city and town is not poor. So even though some environments may be favorable than others, it still doesn't stop the fact that it's people around you that can figure it out. And if people around you, I'm talking about if you live in a major city, that means that you can make it. That means that you can figure it out. In this chapter, for me, it brought back a lot of nostalgia, especially where it's like this idea that growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, everybody wanted to be rich. Everybody wanted to be a millionaire. And we would go on game shows, contests, basically do whatever we had to do to get money, right? It wasn't no technology. It wasn't any like spiritual information. So people was just basically getting it how they live, right? And one of the biggest shows, like growing, I think it had to be late 90s, early 2000s, maybe in the 90s for sure. Who wants to be a millionaire, right? And that got me to thinking, right? If you wanted to be a millionaire and you said, all right, I'm going to save my money and become a millionaire, how long would it take? And this is some real like budgeting shit. Like if you just like get like a particular yield savings account that, have a higher return with lower risk. If you save $555 every month, it would take you 30 years to save $1 million. Now, for me, I would be 70 years old. It's not necessarily a bad idea, but if you wanted to save it in a shorter amount of time, let's say 10 years, you would have to save $8,000 a month. So that means you would have to at least I would say make $10,000 to $20,000 a month, but it's doable. But when you talk about saving $1 million, that's rarely on people's minds to even do. But it harkens back to growing up in the 90s where everybody wanted to be a millionaire. Everybody wanted to be rich. But when you break down the numbers and the ways for which it takes to get there, and the work and the discipline that it takes to get there, in reference to what you want to do today, what you want to do now. Like, I want to be rich, but I want to go on a vacation now, right? I want to buy this car now, this new nice car, but I want to be rich, but I got to get this nice house, this nice apartment now, right? And you got to really start to think in reference to your ability to become rich and the luxuries and the nice things that you have in the moment, how it literally sucks it out of you. Pause. So let's just get into some basic key points, reading through the chapter, some highlights of chapter 2, and then some conclusionary points. If getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way, and if like causes always produce like effects, then any man or woman who can do things in that way can become rich. This whole matter of being rich is brought within the domain of exact science, which to me is profound. So many people doing money rituals, money spells, hoping for money, wishing for money, selling their soul for money, backstabbing, front stabbing, side stabbing for money, losing their mind over money. But according to Wallace D. Wattles, the whole matter is brought within the domain of exact science. If you can think, understand, you can get rich. So basically, in a chapter, he was saying it's not a matter of if you super talented, if you got a bunch of connections, even if you know what business you want to get into, whether it's a job, whether it's an opportunity, it has nothing to do with that. And the basic baseline is if you can think, if you can understand, then you can get rich. Because when you look around and you see rich people who are not brilliantly smart, who are not amazingly handsome or beautiful, in this country, in this time, if anybody else in your town and city can get rich, so can you. And once again, if you already are rich, if you already are a millionaire, you don't have to think about getting rich. That's why the science of getting rich is not for rich people, nor do rich people have to read it or know what's in the book. But if you are not rich, you might want to consider doing things in a certain way via learning the science of getting rich. In conclusion, and I'm paraphrasing, you can be the poorest man. You could be deeply in debt. You can have no friends, no influence, no resources. But if you begin to do things in a certain way, you will begin to get rich. So the goal is to learn the information, apply the information. It's 15 chapters in the book. We're only on chapter 2. So of course you're like, well, what is the certain way? You will have to understand it through the subsequent chapters. The audiobook is free. The PDF is free. Your ability to overlook it and act like it don't exist, that's free too. David Hume says, from causes, and he is the person who created the concept of, not created, but brought to the Western modern world the concept of causation. And causation is very simple. From causes which appear similar, we expect similar effects. This is the sum total of all our experimental conclusions. So conclusion, of course, is like the end of an essay, but it also can be a mental activity to conclude as to why you're not rich today, and then enter into a new beginning and create a new word for your new alignment that will say, I am causing myself to be rich at a metaphysical level. How will this show up? I have no fucking idea. No clue. I can get a phone call at any moment telling me that they need me in Dubai. They need me in South Africa. I don't know. But the cause is, in this season, I am getting rich. So if that is the cause, you should expect a similar effect. This is just causation. One's in the chat if that makes sense. He goes on to say, this is another quote, it is evident that all reasonings concerning matter of fact are founded on the relation of cause and effect, and that we can never infer the existence of one object from another unless they may be connected together, either mediately or immediately. Here is a billiard ball laying on a pool table and another ball moving toward it with rapidity. They strike, and the ball, which was formerly at rest, now acquires a motion. This is as perfect an instance of the relation of cause and effect as any which we know, either by sensation or reflection. So you can be in any situation, create a different cause for yourself, and create what the kids say today as motion. So in summary, if you have no capital, you can get capital. If you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you are in the wrong location, you can go to the right location. And you can do so by beginning in the beginning, right? There was the Word. The Word was with God, and God was the Word. And you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location to do things in a certain way. What this is saying is that it gets greater later just because you cause it to be. Even though you have concluded in other areas that it may have been fucked up, it may have been other than ideal. However, today in your present, you are going to do things in the right way. And if things don't happen the way you want it to happen, take it as a sign. Do not worry. Do not be afraid, because you have already set in motion your future. In the right way, it is very simple, because in chapter 2, he says, like, you need people to grow. You're going to need to deal with people, and how you show up and how you serve and how you work with people is going to sustain you in any economy, in any political environment. You showing up and doing things in a certain way is going to be something that can secure you. but do you believe it? Right? And this is the work that we must do. So this is chapter 2 out of 15. That means there's 13 more chapters. We knocking them out, we just starting, but I'm just hoping to get into it. And I might do more than one chapter a day, just to let you know. I might skip some days just to let you know. But like I said, my goal is to get through this whole entire thing. So to keep this thing going, make sure y'all visit me on Instagram at The Hood Mystic. Join the Discord, keep the conversation going. Cash at me, $ Hood Mystic 38. I'm independent, doing this out of more of the love in the heart or the love of my heart to y'all. You know what I'm saying? So any donation, you know what I'm saying? I'm too proud to beg, you know what I'm saying? Dollar here, dollar there definitely goes a long way, and it's appreciated. And I'm gonna be consistent, delivering spiritual information to the collective, no matter what. So, like I said, not even an hour-long video. So, I mean, that's short. That's short for me. But take it in one step at a time. We're gonna grow together. I promise you that. With all that being said, y'all have a great day. I will catch y'all all on the flip side. Peace.
How you feel?
Feel good.
What we talking about? Real shit or we talking about rhyme? You talking about millions or you talking about mine? What we talking about?
Yo, bust it.
Look at you!
I ain't got no pens on the dance floor. I ain't got no pens on, ain't got no pens on. I ain't got no pens on the dance floor.
Look at you! Look at you!
I ain't got no pens on the dance floor.
How you feel?
Feel good.